Hello, class. This is Maria Arnone. Today, I will be presenting my graduate research project on change management, telecommuting options in banking headquarters. In the 2020, there was a COVID pandemic that changed our country. Businesses were shut down, students could not attend schools, employees could not attend work, and the whole country was on lockdown to protect everyone from coronavirus. Many individuals in our country lost their job during this time. However, some companies found a solution to stay in business and keep employees working when they were physically unable to go into the workplace. Telecommuting. According to the English Oxford Dictionary, telecommuting is the practice of working from home, making use of the internet, email, and telephone. While telecommuting was essential during the peak of the pandemic, many companies have adopted this style of work permanently. According to a study by Paul Schoss in 2020, many banks are choosing to have some of their workforces work remotely for good. JP Morgan Chase and UBS Group AG are just a few examples. During this presentation, I will be going over banking headquarters employees to include who they are, what type of work they do, their work environment prior to COVID-19, their work environment during COVID-19, and now their current work environment as we make our way out of the pandemic. I will discuss the incorporation of teleworking in their work life. Next, I will discuss telecommuting. We will learn what telecommuting is and why it became the new norm during the past year and a half during the COVID-19 pandemic. The review of literature will discuss scholarly articles, studies, surveys, and research about telecommuting and its impact on employees. After the review of literature, I will talk about the advantages and disadvantages of telecommuting. Finally, I will conclude with suggestions and recommendations for future studies about teleworking and banking headquarters. My hypothesis is that banking headquarters employees should have the opportunity to telecommute in order to increase employee satisfaction. Through studying this hypothesis, I will look into the benefits that contribute to employee satisfaction, which are financial savings, work-life balance, and flexibility. There are many elements behind successfully implementing telecommuting, and we will explore them during this presentation. To learn more about banking headquarters, I reached out and interviewed Jacqueline Blackburn, a commercial banker at JP Morgan Chase. She shared her insight with me to paint a picture of banking headquarters. Banking headquarters employees are the employees who help run the daily operations for the banks. They help manage portfolios for clients and find investments for the banks. There is business banking, which is for individuals, and commercial banking, which includes larger companies. There is investment banking as well. All the roles of these jobs include having phone calls, attending meetings, working with databases, and managing portfolios of clients. Prior to COVID-19, employees at banking headquarters who performed the tasks just mentioned would physically attend work every day. After the COVID-19 pandemic, banks had to have all their employees telework. The employees' work tasks were all able to be done while teleworking. However, the loss of in-person human interaction was a detrimental loss that negatively was impacted from teleworking. The ability to engage with clients was lost as well. The banking headquarters heavily relied on digital platforms to host meetings, phone calls, interact with clients, and interact with each other. Though they are able to physically attend work now, many banks, including JP Morgan Chase, are offering the option for some of its workforces to continue to telecommute. As mentioned previously, telecommuting is the practice of working from home, making use of the internet, email, and telephone to accomplish work remotely. Telecommuting has always existed. However, because of the COVID-19 pandemic our nation has been facing for the past year and a half, telecommuting became one of the only ways for organizations to continue work while the world was locked down to prevent the spread of COVID-19. According to the Census Bureau's 2018 American Community Survey, 4.7 Americans regularly telecommuted since 2005. The number of companies that offer the option to telework has increased and skyrocketed in 2020. Prior to 2020, the typical telecommuter was above the age of 35, had a bachelor degree, and earned higher than median salary than an in-office worker. Now, telecommuting is almost the new norm. Banking headquarters were one of those organizations forced to telework during the height of the pandemic. However, even though banking headquarters are able to have employees work in an office, they are still offering the option for their employees to telecommute. While COVID-19 was the primary driving factor for bank headquarters to have their employees telecommute, technological advances have also been a contributing factor that have made this work style sustainable. Technology is an integral element in working remotely. For banking headquarters, establishing protocols and ensuring employees have access to secure software to handle important, sometimes sensitive information is essential. Paul Schoss's research in 2020 found that one thing banking headquarters have developed to enhance telecommuting is developing more automated programs and services. To provide an example, an automation software vendor, Automation Anywhere, launched a suite of artificial intelligence-powered software bots that help collect data and process PPP loans. This automated solution alleviated friction of employees having to open accounts for customers, fill out loan applications, and manage corporate treasury transactions. This is just one way banking headquarters have adopted new practices for telecommuting successfully. Companies being forced to telecommute because of the pandemic actually has opened new opportunities. For companies in locations that are not very populated, such as Alaska, teleworking has improved the quality and quantity of employees who work in companies there, according to a study by Tracy Barber in 2020. Teleworking seems to be the future. It has always existed, but because of environmental factors that force the world to telework, organizations have learned how to best utilize teleworking practices and technological advances to improve their performance. There has been a large quantity of studies, surveys, articles, and research conducted about teleworking in the past year and a half as a result of the large percentage of the workforce being forced to telecommute because of the COVID-19 pandemic. I will be providing an overview of some of the literature about telecommuting and the finding that the researchers have determined. R. Reno conducted a sociological study in 2020 about the impact of COVID-19 in New York City. He dissected the human factors suddenly having to telecommute had on employees. From an autobiographical standpoint, he discusses the fear and uncertainty there initially was when all businesses were shutting down. He discusses that even though there was a great amount of uncertainty, telecommuting at least provided the opportunity for him and fellow employees to take care of themselves and their families while continuing to work and earn money. I would agree with what Reno found in his study because I too was someone who experienced having to telework firsthand during the pandemic. This is an important piece of literature to review, especially at first, because it sets the tone for how people in modern times who experienced the initial push to telework reacted. It was very confusing and chaotic, and people were very shocked to telecommute because it was so different than anything they had done before. The next piece of literature that I studied follows the progression of teleworking and its impact on employees. Further along into the initial push of having to telework, Companies found that as teleworking became the standard practice, employees began to realize how taking care of their own well-being was. While at first this concern was out of self-protection and not wanting to contract COVID-19, as teleworking prevailed, employees realized that self-protection was more than just staying safe to prevent getting sick. It entailed taking care of their own mental well-being. Gerard et al. Studied this extensively. He discusses the challenges employees initially felt during the first wave of telecommuting. However, his research showed that while employees found they had ample spare time when they did not have to physically go into the office, they began to use that extra time for relaxation and leisure activities, which soon began to improve their mental health. In his surveys he conducts with employees, he also found that because employees were teleworking and had more spare time, they began to experiment with new technology and computer and phone applications to better communicate with people. This self-directed research resulted in their technological capabilities growing, which in turn ended up improving their ability to telework. In 2018, Susan Lesak and Pepper Hamilton found that at the time, 45% of employers allowed their employees to telecommute. They discussed best practices for employers to use when granting permission to allow employees to telecommute. Some reasons why teleworking is beneficial to employees is for employees who have children. Telecommuting allows them to save money from not having to pay for childcare. Saving money and being able to spend time with their children improved employee satisfaction. Additionally, Lesak and Hamilton found that if employers want to implement teleworking, it is crucial to develop a policy for employees so that they understand the standards when they work remotely. These policies should strictly relate to job performance and should not include policy on how employees spend their day, because that is too invasive into their personal lives. It is a fine balance to understand how much jurisdiction an employer should have on employees' time when they are telecommuting. In 2020, Rebecca Moore conducted a study talking about the financial wellness benefits of telecommuting for employees. What is interesting about her studies is that she found that the financial savings and time employees get back when they telecommute was almost as if it were an actual benefit, such as healthcare or insurance. Also, having geographical freedom to live wherever they wanted was a major benefit employees gained when able to telecommute. The overall financial savings employees accrue when teleworking was very beneficial to them and caused them to remain at their places of work longer and improve their mental well-being during working hours. Also in 2020, Tracy Barber conducted a study about the work-life balance telecommuting provides. She discusses how teleworking has been on the rise since 2005, but in 2018 began increasing even more, and then in 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, it skyrocketed. She discusses the benefits of teleworking, such as it allows employees to work in locations other than where they live, which can help areas with low population density that normally have difficulty finding workers. Another benefit is that teleworking makes employees 24% more likely to be happy and productive. Remote workers also help employees reduce overhead and operating expenses by preventing them from paying for office and space and equipment. She also found that employees tend to stay at their companies 13% longer than employees who work on site. These are just a few examples of the many pieces of literature I reviewed for this study. Telecommuting has many benefits. One benefit is the financial savings telecommuting provides. According to a survey conducted by Rebecca Moore in 2020, by having employees work remotely, organizations do not have to spend money buying or renting a physical work location. Additionally, they do not have to buy as much equipment or other supplies such as desks, chairs, printers, and other such items. Also, there is no need for companies to spend money on maintenance of its work facilities. Employees save money as well. Working remotely allows employees to save money by not having to pay for gas or public transportation to commute to work, and they do not have to buy clothes for work, as they can work in whatever clothing is comfortable for them. Moore's survey found that telecommuting helped with employee retention in banks as well, because employees could live wherever they wanted while still working for a bank they enjoyed. Many employees preferred working remotely because they could live in more affordable locations and were not tied to the geographical location of their place of employment. In 2020, Tracy Barber found that remote workers stay with their current company for the next 5 years, which is 13% higher than on-site workers, which is according to a 2019 State of Remote Work report. The report also found that companies that allow telecommuting report a 25% lower employee turnover rate than those that do not allow telecommuting. The mental welfare of employees is another benefit of telecommuting. Being able to work remotely grants flexibility for employees, while previously when banking headquarters employees had to work at a physical location, they remained there all day. Joanne Sammer's research in 2021 found that telecommuting allowed employees more flexibility to take care of personal matters while still accomplishing work tasks. This has increased morale and given employees a better work-life balance that has shown improvements in their mental health. These advantages of teleworking change the dynamic of banking employees to allow them a more protean or boundaryless career versus a traditional one. Employees have more time to do what they enjoy in their personal lives, which results in better mental health, retention, and financial savings for banking headquarters. Though there are many advantages to telecommuting, there are some disadvantages as well. Employee oversight is a challenge. Working remotely means that employees are not physically in the workplace, which is completely controlled by the organization. They have more freedom with less oversight. One aspect of this is ensuring employees are using company-issued equipment when conducting official work business. This is necessary to ensure proper security of work documents, personal information of clients or companies is not compromised, and prevent cyber attacks. According to a study by Peter Schoss in 2020, cyber attacks against banks drastically increased in March of 2020 as banks were forced to have their employees suddenly telework as a reaction to COVID-19. Because of how hasty this change was implemented, there was not able to be proper planning. Many cyber attacks came in the form of phishing emails, and employees who were not properly trained fell victim to this cybercrime, enabling their work networks to be compromised. Another consideration that may be a disadvantage for telecommuting is that employees may not have the means to telecommute properly. According to a communications briefing article in 2018, employers should consider if a person has adequate home office equipment before allowing them to telecommute. This means having fast, reliable internet, a landline phone, quiet space to work, and the ability to secure confidential work documents. Both of these disadvantages ultimately come down to if employers trust their employees to telecommute. If the employee needs ample supervision, teleworking may not be the best way to ensure success of the company. If an employee is teleworking and not doing well, it will be difficult for a company to know why that employee is underperforming because the supervisors cannot see the employee on a daily basis. In a survey conducted by Elena Neclou in 2020, she found that 86% of her respondents said that lack of human interactions and team spirit was a disadvantage of telecommuting. The survey additionally found that people who telework felt that their personal life and work became less separated and their working hours increased because they always had access to their work. Time management for employees who telework was also listed as a disadvantage. There are many suggestions for future studies on teleworking in banking headquarters and its effect on employee satisfaction. Through my studies, it appears that in the past year and a half, there has been much literature written on telecommuting. It does seem as though telecommuting contributes to improving employee satisfaction in banking headquarters because it provides them a better work-life balance, saves employees money, and improves mental health. Suggestions I have for further studies in the future would be to follow the progress of automated systems in banking and see if it impacts banking headquarters even needing to have employees. Additionally, it would be interesting to study to see if employee satisfaction over time is impacted from teleworking. Currently, employees have at most telecommuted for not even 2 years. Tracking and studying the effect of teleworking has on employee satisfaction in the long term would be an interesting study.